The true story behind the new naira design. President Buhari is determined to keep his promise to the people and do whatever he can to make sure that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu does not gain access to the 2023 presidential election through any illegal means. President Buhari is known to have a long memory and doesn't foster behaviors like betrayal. Considering this, El-Rufai needs to understand that it will be futile if he attempts to overthrow him by forming an alliance with 8 other northern governors, G9. The commander-in-chief has the power to fight back. Many thought Buhari would be lenient and forgive Tinubu, but this is not the case. The Buhari I know does not show mercy and likes to laugh last. He's so sly, you don't even realize when he's playing a prank on you until it's too late. His laugh is always louder than anyone else's when all is said and done. As for El-Rufai, he can run to the high heavens, Buhari no send. Shortly after the 2019 elections, President Buhari started knowing some truth about former President Goodluck Jonathan and his government. He discovered that almost everything that was sold to him and said to him about Jonathan were all lies and propagandas, championed by El-Rufai and Tinubu's camp in APC. Despite all the efforts Buhari's government made in trying to indict Jonathan, they found nothing personally authentic to hold him with. The pockets of corruption they were able to trace were traced to his appointees. All the alleged threats and misuse of state powers were all discovered to be lies. El-Rufai lied to Nigerians, while Tinubu was busy using the media to spread propaganda against Jonathan. But the most shocking of all to Buhari is, Jonathan left government and kept his mouth shut. Buhari brought Jonathan closer to himself, instructed all security agencies investigating Jonathan and his family to hands off from it. He instructed EFCC to release his wife's properties and monies back to her, and Buhari stopped criticizing Jonathan in public ever since till date. President Buhari and Goodluck Jonathan had a strong friendship before the EndSARS crisis occurred, resulting in a tumultuous period for Nigeria. This affected Buhari's international standings, and his government was heavily critiqued during the situation. It also created tension between different nations within the country. Jonathan was doing well internationally, representing Nigeria as an elder statesman, an international envoy, well accepted and respected by the international community. Buhari needed someone who can reunite the country in all fronts, across religious, ethnic and political lines as his successor, but not at the detriment of the North. He saw that person only in Jonathan, who can be widely accepted as president and still command the respect and love of the entire country. He secretly picked Jonathan as his successor and kept it a secret to a few persons. President Buhari was confident that should former President Jonathan be elected into office, he would not abuse his power or try to investigate the activities of his government or appointed officials. Jonathan is loved by PDP members, he enjoys wide-range public sympathy, he is loved by Southerners, including Igbos. But above all, he has just 4 years to steady the sinking ship. To repair Nigeria, revive her dying economy, reunite the country, and conduct a free, fair, credible, and transparent election, just as he did in 2015, that will eventually benefit a northerner. So Buhari settled for Jonathan, and the modalities on how to perfect his plan started. El-Rufai is a product of Atiku Abubakar, who jumped ship to be loyal to Obasanjo after Atiku brought him into government. Atiku recommended him for appointment as the head of BP to Obasanjo. Atiku also recommended him for appointment as FCT minister when Obasanjo asked for a strong person to implement Abuja original master plan without fear. But El-Rufai betrayed Atiku and pledged his loyalty to Obasanjo. He went behind to backstab Atiku before Obasanjo. That is who El-Rufai is. When he was booted out of government, he started his lies, using ethnic Fulanis as his lying tool. Buhari, being a man who doesn't joke with his ethnic group, both in Nigeria and abroad, brought El-Rufai close to himself as someone who champions the fight of the Fulani people. Politically, He became Buhari's political godson because Buhari was based in Kaduna by then. They held different political meetings, Buhari and his CPC members, of which El-Rufai became part of them. He kept lying every day about Fulani oppression in the hands of Jonathan's government. How Jonathan was killing Muslims and Fulanis. Lagos media and political structure now saw him as a very useful propaganda machine to be used. Both El-Rufai and Tinubu's camp sold all sorts of negative narratives against Jonathan's government. Buhari believed them because El-Rufai is a Muslim whom Buhari never expected to be lying to him. So when Buhari secretly settled for Jonathan, he told El-Rufai, his political godson, his plan and choice in confidence that El-Rufai should keep it as a secret while he works it out. Buhari told the APC caretaker chairman, the governor of Yobe State, his choice, that they should start making arrangements on Jonathan's decamping to the APC. The chairman and some APC governors paid Jonathan a visit at his private residence to inform him on their plans. Because Jonathan was still a member of the PDP then, they have to look for a balance on how he can decamp without raising eyebrows. Jonathan personally asked for the assurance of the president about this and the party chairman on the promise because he doesn't want any disgrace. By then the press and some APC stalwarts were beginning to hear about the rumors. The press confronted Buhari over his choice of successor. He told them his successor will remain a secret. When they confronted him again, he said if he names his successor, they will eliminate him. He was assured of the president's blessings, an extra assurance that his good reputation will not be trashed in the dustbin. For President Buhari to assure Jonathan about his promise, he promised Jonathan to make him a consensus candidate of the APC without primaries. So Buhari started to push for a consensus APC candidate whom he will handpick. When Buhari took his choice of successor serious, just as he did with the new APC chairman, whom he succeeded in handpicking, El-Rufai knew Buhari was serious and wants to make Jonathan president. El-Rufai decided to betray him by leaking Buhari's secret to Tinubu. As someone very close to Buhari, whom Buhari tells most of his secrets, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu believed it and went on a media show to his Yoruba people to cry in Abeokuta, where he said Oyo and Emilokan. Now the plot to scuttle Jonathan's candidacy through negative media remarks started. Meanwhile, Buhari had set motion in place through his boys in government for people to protest to Jonathan's house to ask him to run for president. Unknowingly to Buhari, El-Rufai had sold out. The Buhari strategic team really did the soft work for Jonathan's smooth landing of the APC presidential ticket behind the scenes. They mobilized youths for a protest march to GJ's Abuja residence to beg him to come out and run for president, although it was prearranged. The whole idea was for ordinary Nigerians to have that belief or mindset that Jonathan was actually pressured to come out and run for president, even against his wish, so it would justify him when he eventually declares for APC. Still unknown to them, El-Rufai had other plans. They got a Fulani group to buy him the APC presidential form of 100 million naira. Even though behind the scene, Jonathan actually gave them the money. Jonathan also paid a courtesy visit to the new APC national chair Abdullahi Adamu, where he was assured of the party's support. El-Rufai was nursing the ambition to be vice president in 2023 if he can successfully plan a palace coup that can outsmart Buhari plan. He had Amici or Tinubu as his best bet to achieving that dream. So he opposed Buhari's selection of Jonathan as his successor. He fell out with Buhari's cabal members, kitchen cabinet. He led a rebellion against Buhari's choice of candidate, El-Rufai, alongside some governors. They insisted that there would be no consensus candidates. It must be party primaries or nothing. He was banished from the villa. They intimidated the president, they ridiculed him, to the extent Mr. President had to remind them that they all chose their successors at state levels, but they don't want him to choose his successor as president. He tried to convince them to see reasons with him, but no way. The controversy and uproar became so much over Jonathan's candidacy, led by El-Rufai. Jonathan had to meet with Buhari to inform him on his loss of interest and withdrawal from the race because he is not ready to taint his image, since his consensus candidacy can't be guaranteed. Jonathan left the picture quietly. Buhari now settled for Senate President Ahmed Lawan as his preferred successor for the APC presidential ticket and also for power to remain in the north, having known that Atiku will emerge from the PDP. He was hoping for a northeast contest. Buhari also insisted on consensus candidacy so Ahmed Lawan can easily clinch the APC ticket, but Governor El-Rufai again, now leading a group of 9 politically scheming governors, G9, vehemently opposed President Buhari's request, while insisting that power must be zoned to the south and the APC presidential candidate must be decided by party primaries. They became the 9 wise men from the north, according to Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu's camp. They are governors of Kaduna, Kano, Katsina, Kwara, Niger Plateau, Nasarawa, Zamfara, and Borno State. El-Rufai led a very strong rebellion, this time around against President Buhari's choice of Ahmed Lawan. All efforts by President Buhari to settle with them was bluffed. While behind El-Rufai and other G9 governors negotiated for VP slot, Tinubu personally promised the whole G9 governors the vice presidential slot, unknown if they work for his emergence as APC presidential flag bearer. They became radicals, as Buhari insists on Ahmed Lawan and consensus. Buhari now directed the APC chairman to handle his request that led to a nationwide brouhaha and dramas before the APC primaries. They eventually arm-twisted Adamu and President Buhari to accept their bidding. Power must be zoned to the south, no consensus, and there must be party primaries. 11 APC governors eventually settled for power to return to the south. Before then, Emefiele, who was one of Oso Rock Cabal's choice, had already been silenced by APC governors through the courts after investing so much on campaign vehicles, mobilization and logistics. Emefiele was bitter. The APC governors eventually had their way. It was time for the APC presidential primaries. Eagle Square was boiling up with uncertainty. Tinubu's G9 governors prior to the primaries have been building and mending bridges for their candidates by arranging for delegates. There was too much dollars to play around with at the Eagle Square to induce delegates for votes. But no one saw Tinubu's masterstroke before he unleashed it. While other APC presidential aspirants were busy negotiating for votes to buy from statutory delegates, Tinubu openly bought over his fellow aspirants by reaching a late agreement with them to step down. He refunded every one of them the 100 million they paid for party tickets. He paid them double the amount they had spent on delegates, with political promises to go with. One by one, 7 of them stepped down for Tinubu on live TV and handed over their delegates to him. But behind the scene, they were handsomely rewarded. That was the masterstroke that gave Tinubu the APC presidential party ticket. The likes of Amici and Osibanjo didn't see that coming. The open betrayal of the process by other aspirants in favor of Tinubu did not sit well with Amici, Osibanjo, Rochas and President Buhari. After voting, when the results trickled in, Buhari was seen to be virtually unhappy. But the president had his plans. The party primaries were over, Tinubu was declared as the winner, everyone returned back to their normal lives. So it was time for President Buhari to prove that he is truly the commander-in-chief, and also Rock still controls the political process in Nigeria. Buhari knew the likes of El-Rufai, Ganjuj, and co. cannot win election without riding on the backs of popular candidates or vote buying. Because in their local domain, they are not popular without him. Many of them wouldn't have been governors without Buhari in 2015. So Buhari promised to play his role as C-in-C when the time is right. As they have denied him the right as president to choose his successor, they should also ensure that their candidate wins the 2023 presidential election through them under a free and fair electoral process. As far as President Muhammadu Buhari remains the president, he would deny their presidential candidate all the instrumentality of states, including federal might. That their candidate must win the presidential election under a free and fair electoral atmosphere. Tinubu became the new bride of APC politicians. He became the most important person in the party, as they all snubbed Buhari and also rock, while they run and gather around Tinubu for political promises ahead of time. Even Tinubu himself also snubbed Buhari as he shopped for his running mate, but Buhari wasn't bothered. If Buhari was to be informed of his vice presidential choice, he knows Buhari will never support a Muslim ticket. Something Tinubu had proposed in 2015, but was vehemently rejected by Buhari after settling for Kashim Shettima and snubbing all the G9 governors who stood by him. It was time to make political promises and share positions to them ahead of time. It was time to begin the real politics on how to win the election. After trying all available permutations on how to garner votes to win the 2023 presidential election, the buck eventually stopped at the front of President Muhammadu Buhari. As the most important person, Tinubu and the APC needs, if they must win the presidential election. Like dogs, those governors shamelessly returned back to Buhari, being led by El-Rufai, to apologize to him in order to make peace. To beg for his support as never before, so Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu can win the 2023 presidential election. Buhari, in his usual way, told them that he is not against Tinubu as the APC presidential candidate, neither is he against any of them. But what he will promise them is, Tinubu must contest and win the presidential election in a free and fair atmosphere without external advantage. Fearing for any uncertainty, Tinubu, through APC governors, strategically distributed almost ₦1 trillion in cash all around the country for vote-buying purposes. Because he was hell-bent on winning the 2023 presidential election, no matter what. Emefiele, being the governor of CBN, got wind of the information on how Tinubu, through APC governors, have strategically distributed raw cash all around the country for vote-buying purposes. He took the information to Buhari and showed him proof. Buhari was furious, but there is little or nothing he could do because those governors had immunity protecting them by the constitution. So Emefiele suggested a currency redesign to stop them and many more like them who are hoarding the naira from circulating. Currency redesign was long overdue, coupled with security reports before Buhari on how bandits, kidnappers, militants, terrorists, and politicians are hoarding the naira from circulation. Reducing the 3.32 trillion released by CBN into circulation to just 500 billion only. Buhari hurriedly approved Emefiele's proposal to properly checkmate Tinubu and his vote-buying governors. The currency was hurriedly redesigned, with just color changes to the big denominations, with fewer amounts released into circulation to quickly checkmate those politicians. Buhari gave Emefiele the approval to draft policy implementation that will make vote buying almost impossible with the new naira note. That he will stand by him. That was why cash withdrawal limit was added. To checkmate Tinubu, APC governors, and all those hoarding cash to buy votes. That is why, no matter how much Nigerians protest, President Buhari is not willing to change his stance and allow the use of old currencies, as he has concrete evidence of how Tinubu and governors had distributed raw cash for vote buying, despite court rulings. The APC governors took President Buhari to Supreme Court on account of the new naira policy, which they believe that with such law in place, they cannot win any election because they all believe in buying votes in order to win any election. It has become obvious that this group of politicians are state captors who have captured Nigeria and unwilling to let go, but President Buhari has made up his mind to fight them to the end. Regrettably, President Buhari yielded to pressure from the APC governors following the Supreme Court's decision to allow both the old and new naira to circulate simultaneously. The APC governors persistently lobby President Buhari to endorse Tinubu, warning of potential scrutiny and investigations into his outgoing administration should Tinubu assume power, despite his opposition. President Buhari, seemingly lacking resolve, capitulated to this coercion and reluctantly threw his support behind Tinubu, disregarding the evident manipulations and blatant rigging by INEC. This move marked a stark departure from his earlier commitment, as expressed at the United Nations General Assembly in New York, where he pledged to leave an enduring legacy of free, fair, credible, and transparent elections that empower Nigerians to choose their desired president.
President, I have set the goal that one of the enduring legacies I would like to leave is to entrench a process of free, fair, and transparent, credible election through which Nigerians elect their choice.
Sadly, he deviated from this stance, resulting in the 2023 elections being deemed one of Nigeria's worst. Turning to the plight of the central bank governor, who endured 6 weeks in DSS custody, his predicament, despite the allegations against him, is widely perceived to stem from his involvement in the new naira design, viewed as a ploy to thwart Tinubu's electoral prospects. Nigeria's political landscape reflects a disconcerting reality where politicians spare no effort to secure victory or cling to power with heedless determination. As hardship escalates, with inflation surpassing 28% and the exchange rate reaching 1,600 naira to $1, pervasive insecurity and rampant kidnappings afflict every corner of the nation. Consequently, a considerable number of Nigerians that have the opportunity are departing the country en masse. In light of these challenges, one ponders the nation's ability to endure as a unified entity. As we anticipate and pray for a revitalized Nigeria, kindly consider subscribing to our channel. Additionally, show your support by liking and sharing this video to access more captivating narratives about our political landscape. A new Nigeria is possible.